All right, you guys, welcome back to The Anxious Creative. If you didn't know, you can watch these episodes now on YouTube, which is really exciting. And you're in for a treat today. I've got Laurel Guaderrama here from, did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
That was perfect.
You guys don't even want to know how many times I practiced that beforehand here on the podcast. And today we are going to be chatting all about trichotillomania. I overthink, I overshare, and I overanalyze. So come explore with me as I chat about business, life, and relationships, all through the lens of an anxious creative. So, it's something that I posted on Instagram. I actually did a post about it like a couple of years ago, but I was still really shy about talking about it. And I was like, I don't think I use hashtags. And I wanted to, I posted at 3 a.m, like no one would see it. But just recently, Laurel and I have connected. I can't even remember how we even started talking about it. I don't think it was we talked about it before I posted about it recently.
I know what it was. We started talking about possibly having me on the podcast. And I know that you talk a lot about mental health stuff. So I just threw that out there. I was like, well, I got this. And you were like, me too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's so cool. I was like, how did we? Yeah. So yeah, as you guys know, well, it's called The Anxious Creative. We talk a lot about mental health stuff. And for myself, trichotillomania, if you don't know what it is, I don't know the actual definition, but it's like the pulling out of your hair, which is a compulsion. Laurel, you probably have a better understanding of the definition of it if you want to share with everyone.
Yeah. It's I don't know the exact word for word definition, but it's basically, they kind of explain it as anxiety or OCD or different forms of mental illnesses that are physically manifested through pulling out of your hair. And there's also a very similar one. I don't know if Dawn, if you know the name of it, the one where you pick your skin instead of pulling your hair. It's the same thing, but instead of pulling the hair, you pick at your skin. So I think that's one
called their fingers or their.
Yeah. So it's similar to people who bite their nails compulsively, but ours is much more rooted in either anxiety or OCD, different things like that. But it's a physical manifestation of these things.
Yeah. I just quickly Googled it and it says a compulsive desire to pull one's hair. That's it in a nutshell. And then it says what causes it is your way of dealing with stress or anxiety, a chemical imbalance in the brain similar to OCD, changes in hormones during puberty, and a type of self-harm to seek relief from emotional distress. Now, I remember, we're going to get a little bit more into this, but I remember the moment, it was grade 8 when I first started pulling my hair and I had no idea what it was. I just know it kind of felt good, which was weird. And I would not say that into anyone, but I pulled out all my eyelashes. I had a big bald spot on my head and I didn't want to go to the hairstylist because I remember going once and she's like, what is happening here? But it wasn't until a year ago at a therapy appointment where my therapist is like, it's actually a form of self-harm. And I kind of what? Because I'm I've never self-harmed, it wasn't anything. And she's like, well, what happens with self-harm is it's not about hurting yourself. It's about when your body feels pain, your brain releases feel-good endorphins. And that's what people that's what people are addicted to with self-harm is the brain rushing over, releasing the hormones to make you feel good. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Have you ever heard that before?
So I knew that it was it had something to do with self-harm. I actually never knew that was why self-harm was. Yeah, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes so much more sense in the most twisted way.
I know, right? It messed with me for a while because I'm I don't self-harm. And then I was like, shit, but that feeling of it kind of is relief after.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the brain releases because when your brain to protect your body when it's feeling pain releases endorphins to help combat it.
That's actually really cool. And it's funny that you said that it has to do with puberty because mine happened at 14 and it was the same thing. I pulled out all my eyelashes. I will never forget. I was 14 years old. It was the beginning of, I want to say it was November of my freshman year of high school. And I was sitting in the I was tweezing my eyebrows in the bathroom and then something on my eyelash I was just irritated and everything was just tingling.
Yeah.
And I just took the tweezers and I pulled one out thinking oh, maybe that one hurts. And I pulled it out. and it wasn't the one. So then I continued to pull in that area till I felt like the one come out. It's
Uh-huh.
not actually a real thing. There is no the one. So I was pulling and pulling, and then I sat in the sink and I was like, okay, now it's personal. And I just, with the tweezers, pulled out every single one, and I didn't know what was going on. And
Yeah.
my mom came home, and my mom has had trichotillomania since she was, I want to say 12, like you.
Yeah.
And she came home and saw me, and her reaction was, "Oh my god, stop, and let me tell you what this is." But I know now that inside, she started panicking. Like, I'm surprised she didn't cry when she saw me doing it, because if it was me, after all those years of having it myself, if I see my daughter in the future doing that, I would lose it. I would just I'd be like, "I'm so sorry I did this to you."
Yeah.
But, yeah,
It's
so my
funny
mom
that you
has it
say
too.
that because I remember like because eyelashes and my hair, like my head of hair is like the culprit for me. I picked up my eyebrows a little bit, but that was more like when I had nothing else to pick at, which is so crazy. Not crazy. It's not crazy at all. But um, I remember in grade 8, I pulled out all my lashes and my mom thought I had like some sort of infection. Like there just wasn't awareness around this stuff. Like luckily your mom knew what it was, which is such a beautiful thing in and of itself. But I
Yeah.
remember wearing really thick, heavy black eyeliner to try and like hide it. And in grade 8, there was 2 girls in my class that was like, Dawn, look sideways. And I knew they were like making me look sideways to see, like to point out that I had no lashes. And I was just so self-conscious. I remember in between like classes, I'd go to the bathroom, I'd have my like little black eyeliner in my pocket so I could like go draw it on to look like I kind of had something. And I was just so self-conscious, but had no idea that it was a thing. And I remember like pulling the hairs out of my head in bed and then like the little root of it, like sticking it to the wall. So I would see how many I'd pulled to like shame myself, being like, I can't believe you pulled that many out. Which is,
It's funny that you do that, because my mom, so I pull my eyelashes, I've done my eyebrows, and just in the last year, I've started pulling the hair on the crown of my head, and I'm so upset. Like, it
mhm.
started, and I feel like my whole world is collapsing. But my mom pulls the hair on her head, and yes, I have the little tuft, and I'm
Yeah.
bleach blonde, so people assume it's breakage, and I'm
And
like,
if you
sure,
put
let's
it in
go with
a
that.
ponytail, you get like little
Yeah.
spikies. Yeah.
So my mom doesn't do her eyebrows, but she does her eyelashes and the hair on her head, and she will pull in the car. Like, I see her movement when she's doing it, and I'm like, "Mom, stop." But she'll pull in the car and she'll put it next to the driver's seat, because when she cleans her car, she will scoop it out, and then she's like, "This is the shame." She'll
Yeah.
do it to see how much she's done, and it's like, well, maybe just don't,
Yeah. Cause
mom.
like
Maybe just
shaming
don't.
yourself doesn't actually make it better. It makes me more stressed out.
Yeah, it makes you wanna do it more, because then you see it and it's in front of your face, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, let's just go at it."
Yeah. So you wanna know something kind of cool that I've realized, because I just wanna keep this like a conversation, is that I've eliminated refined sugar in the last 2 weeks, and my pulling has decreased tremendously without refined
Really?
sugar. Yeah, because I think like stress and anxiety, and then I'm for sure a control freak, which makes sense of like OCD, where like I used to think OCD, like I'm not checking like the fridge door or the oven or like my locked door 10 million times. But I got a little bit bad with that when the dog that I had previous, he had like a couple times where he got into things and he ate a kilogram of chocolate chips once, which almost
Oh
killed
my
him.
god.
And that caused me separation
Oh my god.
anxiety. Yeah. So I would like always panic whenever we were leaving him at home alone, and I got a little bit OCD about like checking doorknobs. But I realized like, oh, I'm like really much a control freak, and when life doesn't feel like I have control over it, that's when it gets really really bad. And so it was interesting that you shared that part of like the control part. And I think also like the sugar ups my stress and anxiety. So have you found anything that helps you deal with it?
So, this is weird, but I've noticed that, so it only happens if I'm in, like, a mid-range of stress. It's almost like if something really bad happens that puts me beyond that mid-range, I actually don't pull, which is so weird, because, I mean, I've had some pretty drastic things happen in the past 2 years, and I didn't pull. Like, when my dad got diagnosed with cancer, like, it looked bad for a minute, and I didn't pull at all with that. I ended up in the hospital 5 days before I flew out of the country to get married, and then the day before we flew out, I got into a car accident. So all within a week, no pulling,
Hmm.
none. Opening my suite, no pulling. But like if I don't know, if the fridge is rearranged in a way that I don't like and I can't find what I'm looking for right away, and I know that the cabinet next to the fridge is also a cluttery mess, like that causes me to pull. It's weird. So it's not actual big thing stress. It's more of a smaller control. Like if I can control it, yet I'm not controlling it, I lose it.
And yeah, like when something is actually out of your control and you know it's out of your control, it's like, okay. But when it's like, oh, this should be different. And it
Yeah,
could
and I think that I was worse when I not worse, but I think that I was affected by all stress when I was like in high school. But I'm almost 30 now, and I've done a really large amount of like self-work and going to therapy and trying to, get myself right. And in that, I've learned that if you can't do anything about it, don't worry about it. And I've really, really, really done a really good job trying to make that a pattern in my life. And so I think that has something to do with it, because I've spent years teaching myself that if you can't do anything about it, don't worry about it, because there's no point.
yeah. And did you ever like being, because we're both hairstylists, how did you feel about struggling with something that is related to hair?
For me, I feel like I was really blessed with having my mom also have it, because
Mm-hmm.
as soon as it showed its ugly head on that first day, I knew what it was. I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to deal with it. Like I knew all of this stuff. And my mom came to me and she straight up said, "This is what it is. I've had it since I was 12. No medications ever worked. You're going to be with this for the rest of your life. So you're going to have to learn to deal with it." And it was kind of like, "Oh, I guess I have to learn how to deal with this." And I've always been very open about speaking about it. Even in high school, like I did the same thing with the eyeliner. It's a
Yeah.
good way to hide it.
Faux. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I also was in high school around the time of the emo kid. And so I was that emo kid who wore all the heavy eyeliner and like
Yeah.
sewed my pants really tight. So I was able to hide it really well. And with my close friends who knew about it, I was very open with it because my mom had it and she talked with me about it. And I just knew what it was. I wasn't like the kind of person to hide things away and shy away from it. It was like, no, this, just like I said, control. So here's, and so when I didn't really, I would openly talk about it with my clients, and my through phases where like I'll wear heavy and eyebrows drawn in, and like right now I have to draw my, and I can, wear less eyeliner, and they're pretty when they use.
You're cutting out a little bit. Shoot, and you're frozen. This has been so amazing, and I know it's been so great to um, be able to talk about it openly. I think we're back, and so if we can get back connected, I know the internet's being a little bit silly on us here, but I know, like Laurel, the fact that you've been able to share, or that your mom knew about it, and that your mom was able to. Um, be able to walk you through it is such an amazing thing, because I know I didn't have anyone in my family, didn't know what it was. And, we didn't think to go to the doctor or anything like that. And so being able to have that support and not have to feel like you have to hide it is so, so cool. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what
That's
happened.
okay. That's okay. The internet does some funny things. So I was just saying, like, it's so cool for you to have that support of, like, it sucks that both you and your mom deal with it. But it's so great that you have each other, and that she got it and understood it and knew what it was and understood like the whole compulsion of it as well. Cause I even remember being told it was a compulsion, because I remember people in my life being like, well, just stop. Just stop. And I'm like, it's not that easy.
The amount of times that people have told me, like, just don't do it. It's like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I've explained it to people like it's an actual medical condition. So
Mhm.
it's like telling a diabetic, like, just don't just don't be a diabetic. It's like, I don't know what you want from me because this is what I was dealt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like the like pressure of like, just stop, just stop. It's like that actually makes it way worse and stresses me out, because then I remember being like, I can't, and thinking, well, then obviously I should be able to just stop. And that whole like shame spiral of like, well, people are telling me I should be able to stop and I can't. So obviously I suck. And like just this like negative spiral. But I think it's something that needs to be talked a lot more, because like I remember looking up the stats, and it's more common than a lot of other mental illnesses like schizophrenia and bipolar, which those have a lot different effects. But they say, I think it was like 1 in 100 people have trichotillomania, but it's not talked about because you don't really, unless someone's like pulling out and they have huge bald patches on the top of their head, you don't really notice it on the day-to-day person. And I think
And
that's what makes it, yeah.
I feel like a lot, it's funny you said 1 in 100 because, and you also said people don't talk about it. So I feel like more people are talking about it now because when my mom was younger and went to the doctor, they told her that 1 in every 500,000 people have it and that it was rare. And now I know that it's way more common. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Everybody thought that it wasn't like, oh, so what? I tore my hair and pull my hair out. It's not a thing. Like most people didn't bring it up to their doctors, but my mom had it so bad that she was bald all over her face and her parents took her in. And so, yeah, so it's funny that the statistic has changed, but I think it hasn't actually changed. More people are comfortable saying that they have this.
Get this, I just Googled it. January 28th, 2020, 1 in 50 people experienced trichomilita, I can't say it right now. Trichotillomania in their lifetime. Often those who struggle with the condition keep it hidden as much as possible by covering the areas of the body affected. So 1 in 50 people, they say, but that's only, the stats only coming from people that'll talk about it. So it could be even more common.
And I feel like sometimes because you know how sometimes, well, okay, with depression, there's people who are depressed for a time, and then there are people with an actual chemical imbalance. I think that this possibly could have something similar to that, where, like, okay, for me, I think that because of my mom, I'm probably going to have this for the rest of my life. But there might be somebody who just goes through a stressful period of time where they develop this bad habit. And then when the stress goes away, they might break it and they might never have it again for their lives. So it might have something to do with that too.
Yeah. And like, I'm just reading here, it says like most of the times it onsets between the age of 9 and 14, with a peak prevalence between 12 and 13. Seems to be more common in kids. So I wonder, like those teen years, those adolescent, those like going through puberty, those are hard years. And those are hard times of trying to figure out like what's going on, and you feel alone. And I'm not surprised that that's kind of when it starts. And for mine, obviously it's just kind of, and for yours, like stuck with us, as it's like a sucking your thumb type thing. I think like you don't know you're doing it, but it's like a self-soothing type
I
thing.
was literally just thinking of like kids suck their thumb, kids bite their nails, kids do a lot of little like nitpicky habits that we grow out of as we get older. And that's probably just a bigger one of them.
Absolutely. So what would you, being on this side of it and understanding it and feeling like at peace with it, like as much as it's annoying, and we probably, I'm not going to speak for you, but like I wish I didn't have to deal with it. What would you say to someone who's in the thick of it, not really, maybe just like listening to this and being like, holy shit, I have that and I don't even realize? What would you say to somebody who's listening in and kind of just realizing, or having a moment of like, oh, thank God I'm not alone?
The best thing that you can do, and this goes for any mental health issue that you're dealing with, because this is a mental health issue, is accept that you have it and figure out ways to cope with it.
Mhm.
Because if I had spent 10 years being like, oh, I don't have it. No, it's fine. I don't, it's still going to happen. And then I don't know how to tackle it. Like it's running my life instead of me trying to kind of run it. Like over the years, I found different ways to cope with it and different little tricks and tips that I have for myself. And I don't know, just I know this sounds so cliche, but also looking on the brighter side, like I'm really happy that it's in right now to draw your eyebrows in. I'm really happy that false eyelashes are a thing. And it could be worse. It could
Truly.
be a lot worse. And finding ways to cope is going to be the best thing. And finding ways that you cope with it, because the things that I do in my little tricks that I have might not work for you. So try a bunch of different things, find out what works, and kind of just go with that and stick with it. It's probably still going to happen because, like Don was saying, people say, oh, just stop. We can't just stop. Like, we can't. It's
Yeah,
going to happen. But finding ways to kind of deter it, it can make
totally.
it a lot easier.
I know I like would try to like wear like gloves to bed and it's like, nope, that doesn't work. But if my hair's wet, I don't want to do it. There's like something about having wet hair. I haven't been able to figure out a way to stop doing, actually having nails sometimes helps with me with not picking my lashes because it's like harder. But like, yeah, having wet hair helps me like stop doing it to my head of hair. And then also like trying not to shame myself, but I'll like look in the mirror because like if this, well, I have gray roots right now, which is so embarrassing. But if it's like getting really thin looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that sometimes like just seeing how bad it is helps me motivate not to do it. But I don't want to shame myself for it.
Yeah, so when I'm at home and I'm not wearing makeup, if I start to pick at my eyelashes, I actually will run in the bathroom. I have a little vial of vitamin E oil, and I'll take that on a Q-tip and I'll just slather my lashes because if they're slippery, I can't grip them to pull them out. So
Mm,
I'll do that. For my like when I do have makeup on at work or whatever, I just busy my hands. If I have makeup on and I'm out doing something, I will busy my hands. I will hold my phone and then I'll hold my personal phone, my work phone, my water bottle. Like I'll do whatever I need to have my hands unavailable to pull.
yeah, because mascara is like the worst enemy because you'll start picking at it and then it like you kind of find the lashes that you want off.
Yeah. I okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but when I used to get lash extensions and I got them for about a year and it didn't stop me from pulling altogether. However, when I had lash extensions, I would go to reach and they feel different. And as soon as I would touch them, I'd be like, bitch, you paid a
Funny.
lot for these. I'd be like, you paid so much money for these. Don't
Yeah.
touch them.
That helped me for a while too, until I was like, meh, and I'd start like playing with them. But yeah, at the beginning, I'd be like, no, you paid for these. Do not pull them out. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like you got to do what you got to do. And sometimes something will work for a while and then it won't work for you. And then you got
Yeah.
to find something new. Yeah, totally. So, what do you expect the future of your life to look like with trichotillomania?
Honestly, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it right now. I'm going through a phase where I've been pulling very minimally for the past like I'd say 6 months or so. I have almost full lashes. I have almost full eyebrows. In the past 2 weeks, I've started pulling again, but I'm trying to like rein it in. But I have a pretty good ebb and flow where even if I tomorrow pull everything out, like I'm okay with myself. It is what it is. Like I did it to myself kind of thing. My biggest fear is that whole thing of like what happens when I have a daughter and she at 12 years old I come home and she's doing it. Like I feel like that will just ruin me. Like I will feel so guilty as if I did it to her. And I think that's the one thing that I haven't met yet that is really scary to me.
Yeah. And what is it that scares you? Because you live with it, you know it. So is there a fear of what she's feeling or a fear of insecurity for her? Or
It's
because I'm just
not
there's probably
it
some moms listening that have daughters that they're like, oh, I should watch for this.
it's just I know how inconvenient it is and it sucks. And even though I have a really good handle on it, there are days where I wake up and it sucks to wake up in bed, like, next to my husband who loves me with no makeup on, knowing that I don't look like I look patchy. It's not it looks weird, like, I know he loves me no matter what, but you know what I'm trying to say, like, it's just not it's patchy and it's it changes every day because, like, the next day I might pull out this corner, and I just know that no matter how good you are with it and how good you are with yourself, it's inconvenient and it's annoying, and of all the things that we have to face as women in the world, really, I'm gonna give my daughter that? Like, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just
Yeah.
I just know how inconvenient her beauty routine is gonna be going forward.
It's just really teaching like the next generation self-acceptance and like your beauty doesn't matter about your external appearances. Like beauty, that's not
Yeah.
beauty. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even when, because 'cause I've always been pretty, self-confident with myself, but even there's times where we want to, we're hairstylists, we want to get creative, and I'm a makeup artist too. And so there would be times where I'd be doing like really fun makeup looks as a teenager with my friends, and they would all go to put these, like, those costume lashes with like feathers or whatever. And I would have no lashes, so I couldn't put them on because there was nothing for them to sit on. So it's even just moments like that where it's like, I literally can't play with you guys because I
Yeah.
can't put them on. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing so openly. It's something that's taken me a lot of years to get comfortable talking about. And it's so I don't want to say it's nice to find someone else who struggles with it, because I don't wish this on anyone, but there is something really beautiful about getting to connect with someone who gets it and understands. So for anyone who's listening that may have trichotillomania or struggle with something just in general, know that you can reach out to either of us. Because I think I'm going to speak on both of our behalves, is like, we don't want people to struggle alone with it.
absolutely. Like I think I would have gone a very different way with this if my mom hadn't also had it. That was a very good moment where she came home, she knew exactly what it was, and she told me right then and there as I'm staring bald-faced into the mirror. She was
Yeah.
like, "This is what it is, and this is why we do it, and try your best not to." Like, it was so nice to have her from day one understand and know what it was, and I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that. I don't think I'd be as accepting of it because I wasn't alone. I literally wasn't alone in my own house. And so if you, if anyone out there is alone in their own house with this, you're not alone because we have this and we're more than willing to talk about it.
Yes, absolutely. So if you guys didn't know, Laurel is a hairstylist, but also an independent business educator for hairstylists. So where can people find you, Laurel?
You can find me on Instagram at Looks by Laurel, and my name is Laurel, so Looks by Laurel. And you can access all of my education through the link in my bio. I'm pretty much on Instagram more than any other platform, and so if you DM me through that, if you comment on anything, I'm pretty quick to respond and very helpful there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your full schedule to come be on the podcast and share, like I said, so openly about something that needs to get talked about more. I know this is going to open up conversations for people and just help people feel less alone. So thank you so, so much.
You are more than welcome.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.